The crimson dusk rolled over the jagged cliffs of the Arizona wilderness, painting the Apache camp in gold and fire. Smoke rose from the center fire, carrying with it the scent of burning cedar and something heavier, the tension between a man and a woman who once shared a heartbeat. "You are so beautiful. I cannot live without you," murmured Tazeen, his voice trembling with the weight of moons spent in longing. The wind carried his words softly through the sagebrush. Across from him sat his wife, Liana, a woman of 30 whose eyes once held the stars. But tonight, they were cold, mirroring the river that ran beneath the canyon, calm above, dangerous below. Her hands rested on her lap, still as carved stone. She looked up at him slowly. "But I do not want to live with you," she said, her voice steady as flint. "I love someone else." For a moment, even the fire seemed to freeze. Tazeen's chest rose once, sharply, like a man struck by a blade he didn't see coming. "Someone else?" He echoed, disbelief clawing at his throat. "You speak as if our spirits were never joined under the sacred moon." Liana turned her face away. "Spirits change, Tazeen. The wind carries them elsewhere." Silence settled like dust between them. The drums from the nearby celebration had long stopped, yet the echo of them pulsed in Tazeen's skull, rhythmic, painful. He rose to his feet, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the firelight. "Who is he?" Liana didn't answer immediately. She stood too, her moccasins whispering against the dirt. "He's not from the tribe," she said at last, her tone heavy with something between shame and defiance. "He's a rancher. A white man." The words shattered something inside him. The fire cracked loud enough to startle the horses tied nearby. Tazeen's eyes darkened like a storm about to break. "You would trade your blood for his gold? Your soul for his fence of lies?" Her jaw clenched. "You think love belongs to one color, Tazeen? You think hearts obey borders drawn in dust?" He stepped closer, and for the first time, she looked afraid. His voice dropped to a whisper, trembling between love and fury. "You were the river that gave me life, Liana. Without you, I am the desert. And with you," she replied softly, "I am the cage." The words struck him harder than any spear. He turned away suddenly, walking toward the edge of the canyon. Below, the vast emptiness yawned open, dark, endless. His hand brushed against the knife at his side. The world blurred. The wind howled like 1,000 ghosts. Liana stood still, her breath uneven. She had never seen him this way broken, not in body but in soul. "Why him?" he asked finally, his back still turned. "What does he give that I could not?" She swallowed hard. "Peace. You gave me passion, Tazeen. Fire and thunder. But peace. Peace is what I need now." He closed his eyes, remembering the nights they had danced under the stars, her laughter echoing through the canyon like music. He remembered the way she once clung to him when the world turned cold. "Peace. The word tasted bitter. At length, he said quietly, "Then may the wind guide you to him. But remember, the wind never forgets where it once touched the earth." She didn't answer. She turned and walked toward the path leading down the canyon, her figure glowing briefly in the dying firelight. Tazeen watched her go until the shadows swallowed her whole. The night deepened. Coyotes sang in the distance, mourning for something they didn't understand. Tazeen sat beside the fire again, staring into the flames. He reached into his pouch and drew out a feather hers. She had tied it in his hair the night they were wed. He held it in his palm, and for the first time in years, his hand trembled. Somewhere out there, beyond the canyons, beyond the borderlands, she would be riding toward another man's world. But Tazeen's heart whispered a truth. The stars already knew love that deep never truly dies. It just hides in the wind, waiting for the right storm to return. And that storm was coming. The moon had risen high over the desert, pale and watchful, when Liana reached the valley where the rancher lived. Her horse, a tired chestnut mare, snorted softly as they neared the wooden fence that marked the border between two worlds, one of dust and spirit, the other of smoke and steel. A lantern flickered in the window of a small cabin. The smell of tobacco drifted on the air, along with the faint rhythm of boots pacing across the porch. "Liana," came a low voice as she dismounted. "Ethan Ward." The rancher stepped into the lantern's light. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a trimmed beard and eyes the color of storm clouds. His white shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing sun-scarred arms that spoke of labor, not leisure. "You came," he said. Walking toward her. "I had to," she whispered, her heart pounding with both relief and guilt. "I told him." Ethan stopped in front of her. "Tazeen?" She nodded slowly, his jaw tightened. "And?" She looked away, her voice shaking. "He knows. He didn't stop me." Ethan reached out, brushing her hair gently behind her ear. "Then it's over." Liana hesitated. The word over-echoed in her chest like thunder rolling through an empty canyon. "You don't understand him, Ethan. He's not like other men. He doesn't forget." Ethan smiled faintly. "I don't care what kind of man he is. You're with me now. That's all that matters." But even as he said it, something flickered in his eyes, doubt or maybe fear. He knew stories of the Apache warrior called Tazeen of the Red Wind, the man who could track a deer for 3 days without rest, who fought off 5 bounty hunters alone and left them, crawling back to town half dead. And now that same man had been broken by love. Inside the cabin, the warmth of the fire touched Liana's skin, but her heart stayed cold. Ethan poured her a tin cup of coffee, but she barely drank. Her mind wandered back to the campfire, to Tazeen's face, that look when she told him she loved another. She hadn't expected silence. She had expected rage. Outside, the coyotes howled again. The same cry that haunted the canyons every night. Ethan set down his cup. "You're shaking." "I'm fine," she lied. He knelt beside her, his hand resting over hers. "You've done the hardest part. You're safe here." "Safe," she repeated softly. "That word feels strange." Ethan smiled gently. "Then we'll make it feel right again." But just as he leaned closer, a sound cut through the night, faint, distant, but unmistakable. A drumbeat. Slow, hollow, echoing across the valley. Liana froze. Her fingers tightened around Ethan's arm. "What is it?" he asked, standing up. "Drums," she whispered. "Apache drums." Ethan frowned and stepped to the door, peering into the darkness. "Probably just some ceremony up in the hills." She shook her head. "No. That rhythm isn't for ceremony. It's for warning." The wind picked up, swirling dust against the window pane. The mare outside neighed restlessly, pulling at the rope knot. Ethan turned back to her. "He wouldn't follow you here, would he?" Liana couldn't answer. She wanted to say no, that Tazeen was too proud, too wounded, too spiritual to come after her. But deep down, she knew the truth. The Apache didn't forget betrayal, especially when it came wrapped in love. Ethan walked to the corner and lifted his rifle from the wall. "If he comes near this place, I'll handle it." "Handle it?" She whispered bitterly. "You don't handle a storm, Ethan. You survive it." Outside, the drums stopped suddenly. The silence that followed felt heavier than sound. Liana went to the window and stared out. The horizon was black and endless. Somewhere out there, she could feel him, Tazeen, moving like the wind he was named for, silent and unstoppable. She pressed her palm to the glass. "Don't come," she whispered. "Please don't come." But even as she said it, a part of her wished he would. Ethan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "He's not here," he said softly. "You're safe." Yet the flickering light of the lantern betrayed the truth. Neither wanted to speak. A shadow moved far beyond the fence, just at the edge of the firelight. A figure, still as stone, watching Dot, and though the distance between them was miles, Tahsin's eyes found hers through the night, burning with a mixture of love and vengeance that even the wind could not carry away. The storm had begun. Morning came quietly to the valley, painting the land in soft gold. The air smelled of sage and distant rain, but beneath its beauty, a sense of unease stirred. Ethan Ward stepped out of his cabin, rifle in hand, eyes scanning the endless plains. His boots crunched over dry earth as he checked the corral. The horses were restless, their ears twitching toward the canyon ridge. Liana appeared in the doorway, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. "They didn't sleep," she said softly. "Neither did I." Ethan forced a smile. "You're still thinking about him." Her gaze drifted toward the horizon. "You'd think after everything I'd stop feeling him. But I can't. The air changes when he's near." Ethan walked back toward her. "There's no one out here but us. If Tahsin came close, I'd see tracks. I'd see smoke, something." "Not him," she said quietly. "He moves like a shadow." Ethan sighed, glancing toward the hills. "Well, shadow or not, he can't scare me off my own land." He leaned the rifle against the porch railing, but as he turned, something caught his eye, a shape carved into the dirt near the fence. He stepped closer and froze. There, drawn in careful strokes, was a symbol, an Apache thunderbird surrounded by 4 circles. Liana's voice trembled. "That's his mark." Ethan knelt, brushing the edge of the design with his hand. "What does it mean?" She swallowed hard. "It means he's watching." "And the circles." Her voice faded. 4 nights. That's all he's giving me." Ethan stood, his jaw set. 4 nights for what? "To come back," she whispered. "Or face the storm he brings." For the first time, Ethan's confidence faltered. He looked toward the hills again, and for a moment, he could have sworn he saw movement, a dark figure standing against the sunrise, motionless as stone. He blinked, and it was gone. Inside the cabin, Liana sat by the fire, her mind lost between guilt and fear. She remembered the nights she spent beside Tahsin, the scent of cedar on his skin, the way he would whisper to the spirits before sleep. He had always been more than a man. He was part of the earth itself, and now she had wounded that earth. Ethan paced near the window, restless. "He won't come here, Liana, not with me standing guard." She looked up. "You don't understand him. When an Apache man loses his heart, he doesn't seek revenge. He seeks balance. He'll come not to kill, but to take back what was his." Ethan frowned. "You make him sound like some spirit." She met his eyes. "He is, in his own way." The wind outside began to rise, rattling the shutters. A tumbleweed rolled across the yard, hitting the fence and sticking there like a trapped soul. Liana stood, her hand trembling. "He's close." Ethan grabbed his rifle and stepped onto the porch again. The land stretched out quiet and empty, yet every shadow seemed alive. Then a sound, faint but sharp. A bird cry, high and piercing. Liana's breath caught. The thunderbird. He's calling it. Ethan turned in circles, scanning the ridge. "It's just a hawk." But she shook her head. "No, it's his warning." That night, the sky turned strange. Clouds rolled in from the east, though no storm had been forecast. Lightning flickered silently behind them, painting the mesa in flashes of silver. Ethan barred the doors and set the rifle beside the bed. Liana sat near the window, unable to rest. Every few minutes, she thought she saw movement among the rocks, the glint of metal, the shimmer of hair, the faint trace of breath in the dust. Hours passed. Then, just before dawn, she saw it, a feather, red-tipped and black, lying on the windowsill from the outside. She stood, her heart pounding. Slowly, she opened the window, letting the cold wind rush in. She reached out, trembling fingers brushing the feather. When she turned it over, she gasped. Carved into the quill was a single word in Apache script: remember. The window slammed shut with the force of the wind. Liana backed away. Clutching the feather to her chest, Ethan stirred awake, gun in hand. "What is it?" She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "He's here." And somewhere beyond the hills, Tazeen stood atop a rocky cliff, his long black hair flowing in the storm wind, lightning reflecting off the beads around his neck. His eyes burned with sorrow, not hate. The time for patience was over. The hunt had begun. The fourth night came cloaked in wind and silence. The thunderclouds that had circled the valley now loomed above it, heavy and dark, as if the heavens themselves were holding their breath. Inside the ranch cabin, Ethan Ward cleaned his rifle by lantern light while Liana sat by the window, her shawl pulled tight around her shoulders. The red-tipped feather lay on the table between them, silent proof that Tazeen was near. "He's toying with us," Ethan muttered, leaving signs, shadows, marks in the dirt, trying to scare us off. Liana shook her head slowly. "He's not trying to scare you, Ethan. He's reminding me." Ethan looked up. "Reminding you of what?" "That love isn't something you walk away from without consequence," she said, her voice trembling. "Tazeen doesn't believe in endings, only returns." Ethan slammed the cleaning rod down. "Then maybe he'll return straight into the barrel of my gun." She flinched. "Don't say that. He was my husband once, and now he's hunting us." Ethan snapped. "You think I'll just sit here and let him?" A sudden crash interrupted him, the window shutter banging hard against the wall. The lantern flickered, nearly dying. Liana stood quickly. "He's close." Ethan grabbed his rifle, heading toward the door, but she caught his arm. "No, let me go first." He stared at her, confused. "Are you out of your mind?" "He won't harm me," she whispered. "Not unless you follow." Before Ethan could stop her, she pulled on her boots and stepped out into the storm. The wind tore at her dress, carrying sand and whispers from the canyon beyond. She followed the sound, faint at first, then stronger, the rhythmic thump of a drum echoing between the cliffs. Down by the riverbank, the moon broke through the clouds. There he was. Tazeen stood barefoot on a rock, shirtless, his muscular form glistening with rain and moonlight. His long black hair whipped behind him, and his tribal jewelry gleamed against his chest. In his hands, he held a drum painted with thunderbirds, the same mark he'd carved in the dust days ago. When he saw her, he stopped drumming. "Liana," he said softly. Her name carried like a prayer on the wind. She froze, her heart pounding. For a moment, it felt like no time had passed, like the fire between them still burned. But then she saw his eyes, not just pain, but something deeper, something ancient. "Tazeen," she whispered, "you shouldn't have come." He tilted his head, a sad smile on his lips. "The wind goes where it must." She took a cautious step forward. "I told you the truth that night. I don't love you anymore." He looked down at the ground as if her words were stones thrown into his chest. "You lie even to the stars that watched our vows." "Tazeen, please." He raised his eyes again, fierce and wet. "You belong to two worlds, Liana, mine and his. But one cannot live in both. You must choose before the dawn." The rain began to fall harder, pelting the dry earth with the scent of thunder. Liana's voice cracked. "There's nothing to choose. My heart is already gone." Tazeen stepped closer, so close she could feel the heat of him through the rain. "Then why do you tremble when you see me?" She said nothing. The wind howled between them. He reached into his necklace and pulled out a small charm, a woven circle made of grass and turquoise beads. "You left this behind," he said. "It was meant to protect us both." She stared at it. It was their wedding charm. The night they bound their souls, she had tied it around his neck with trembling hands. "Keep it," she whispered. "It belongs to you now." He nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "Then the spirits will judge us both." From the distance came a faint shout. Ethan's voice. Tazine's expression hardened instantly. "He's here." Liana turned. "No, please, don't hurt him." But Tazine's muscles tightened. "You chose him. Now you will see the truth of your choice." Before she could stop him, he vanished into the darkness, silent as the wind. Liana ran after him, her heart in her throat, her voice lost to the storm. The lightning flashed across the valley, and in its glow she saw them both. Ethan at the edge of the trees, gun raised, and Tazine moving toward him like a shadow born of thunder. The night screamed with thunder and gunfire, and then silence. The first light of dawn crept across the desert, painting the rocks in hues of amber and rose. The storm had passed, but its memory clung to the land, the scent of wet earth, the hush after violence. Liana woke on the riverbank, her dress soaked, her hair tangled with sand and tears. For a moment, she didn't move. The echo of the gunshot still rang in her mind. She pushed herself up slowly. The sky above her was pale, innocent, as if the heavens hadn't heard what happened beneath them. Then she saw the marks in the mud, footprints, blood, and drag lines leading toward the canyon. "Ethan!" She gasped out. She stumbled forward, her bare feet slipping in the mud. A few paces later she found him, Ethan Ward, lying against a fallen log, his rifle beside him. His shirt was torn, blood darkening the fabric around his shoulder. She dropped to her knees beside him. "Ethan, please." "Wake up," he groaned, his eyes fluttering open. "Liana?" "I'm here," she whispered, pressing her hand against his wound. "Don't move." He winced, gripping her wrist weakly. "He didn't kill me." Her breath caught. "Tazine?" Ethan nodded. "He could have, but he didn't. He aimed low. Just wanted me down." Tears welled in her eyes. "Then why are you still bleeding?" He gave a faint, bitter smile. "Maybe the gods wanted a reminder." Liana looked toward the hills, where faint smoke curled into the morning sky. "He's gone," she whispered. "For now." Ethan reached up, touching her face. "You can still come with me. We'll leave this valley. Head east. Start over." She hesitated. The thought of escape sounded sweet, a chance to outrun the storm. But deep inside, she knew Tazine wouldn't let her go that easily. Not out of spite, but out of love that refused to die. "Rest," she said softly. "I'll get water." She rose and walked toward the river, her reflection trembling in the ripples. For a moment, she knelt there, staring into her own eyes, haunted, lost. Then she heard it, a whisper. Not from the wind, but from somewhere deeper, the voice she once knew like her own heartbeat. "Why do you weep for him?" She turned sharply. Taghen stood across the river, half shrouded in mist. The morning light painted his muscular form in gold, his long black hair wet against his shoulders, his tribal jewelry glinting like ancient fire. Liana's breath hitched. "You should have killed him," she said bitterly, though her voice broke halfway through. Tazeen's eyes softened. "You think that would bring peace to you?" "I think nothing brings peace anymore," she whispered. He stepped closer, his feet silent even on the stones. "I could not take his life. That would make you hate me forever. But the land remembers the blood he spilled, my brother's blood." Her eyes widened. "Your brother?" Tazeen nodded slowly. "Years ago. A rancher like him. Your man's kind took what was not theirs, and my brother died defending it." Liana shook her head. Ethan's not like them. He's not. Tassine's jaw tightened. Maybe not, but love blinds you to truth. You left the one who carried your spirit for a man who carries a gun. She took a step forward, tears streaking down her face. Because my spirit was tired of fighting. I wanted peace. For a moment, silence. Only the river's whisper. Tassine looked at her, long, searching. You think peace is found by running? Peace is not a place, Liana. It's what you bring to the fire inside you. Her lips trembled. Then why do I still feel you when I sleep? He smiled sadly. Because the wind never forgets the name it once sang. A sound broke the moment, a groan behind her. Ethan was struggling to stand, clutching his wounded arm. Tassine's eyes hardened again. Liana turned. Stop, please, both of you. But Ethan, pale and furious, raised the rifle one more time. You should have finished the job, Apache. Tassine didn't move. He simply looked at Liana. Now you will see what your peace costs. Ethan pulled the trigger. The shot cracked through the valley, but Tassine moved faster than lightning. He lunged forward, the bullet grazing his side as he grabbed Liana and spun her to safety. The rifle dropped into the water. Ethan fell to his knees, gasping in pain as the recoil tore open his wound again. Liana screamed. Torn between them, the man who saved her and the man who loved her, Tassine pressed his hand to his bleeding side, breathing hard. You cannot have both worlds, he said quietly. Before the next moon, you must choose. Then, before she could answer, he disappeared into the mist, leaving only the echo of drums and the whisper of wind where he once stood. And as the sun broke over the canyon, Liana realized the real storm hadn't passed. It was only waiting for her heart to decide which world it would destroy. The night stretched long over the desert, and the flames in Tahoma's fire burned low, casting ghostly shapes upon the rocks. His mind was no longer his own. It wandered between memory and madness. Every whisper of the wind seemed to carry Elara's voice. Every shadow seemed to mock his love. He rose slowly, his bare chest gleaming with the ash of his ritual fire. The silver pendant in his hand, once a symbol of their bond, now felt like a knife pressed into his heart. Spirit of the wind, he whispered into the night, his deep voice trembling, show me her truth. If her heart is gone, take mine with it. A sudden gust swept through the canyon, tossing his long black hair into a wild storm. The fire roared as if it heard his cry, then died down to embers. For a brief moment, Tahoma saw her Elara in the smoke. Her eyes were cold, distant, her lips whispering, you must let me go. He gasped and fell to his knees, clutching his chest. By dawn, Tahoma had mounted his black stallion and ridden toward the white man's ranch, the place where Elara had chosen her new life. The rising sun painted the desert in blood-red light as if the land itself knew what was coming. When he reached the ridge overlooking the ranch, he saw her, Elara, standing outside the wooden fence, hanging linens to dry. She looked peaceful, content, as if the years they had shared under the moon and stars were dreams that had never been. For a long time, Tahoma couldn't move. His breath came slow, his heart heavy. Then, like thunder in his veins, rage replaced pain. He urged his horse down the slope. The hooves thundered across the sand, startling the horses in the corral. Elara turned, her eyes wide, the color draining from her face. Tahoma, she gasped, stepping back, the linen slipping from her hands. He dismounted with one motion, his bare feet sinking into the dust. The sun blazed behind him, his body a silhouette of power and fury. You told me you loved me, he said, his voice raw and low. You said the wind itself carried our vows. Her lips trembled. That was before. I can't go back to that life. That life? He took a step closer, his voice cracking. That life was our soul. You were my dawn, Elara. Tears filled her eyes. I was your prisoner, she whispered. I wanted more than fire and shadows in the desert. Tahoma froze. The words hit him harder than any bullet could. Prisoner? He repeated softly. I gave you the sky, the stars, my people's heart. Behind her, Dane appeared, holding a rifle. That's enough, Apache, he called, his tone cautious. She's made her choice. Tahoma's jaw clenched, his nostrils flaring as his dark eyes locked onto the rancher. You took her from me. She came on her own, Dane said firmly, keeping the rifle steady. Now you need to leave. Elara stepped forward, trembling. Please, Tahoma. Just go. Don't make this worse. For a long, unbearable moment, all three stood frozen, the desert silent except for the soft creak of the windmill turning behind the ranch. Then Tahoma's hand fell to his side, touching the blade at his belt. If you ever loved me, he said hoarsely, look at me once more. She looked at him, and what he saw in her eyes was not love. It was pity. His soul shattered in that instant. He turned away, his shoulders heaving, his hair hiding the tears that streaked his face. He mounted his horse, gripping the reins until his knuckles turned white. Elara, he said without looking back, when the spirits call your name, remember, it was I who gave you the wind. And with that, he rode off into the endless red horizon, leaving behind the only love he had ever known and the heart he could never reclaim. The desert swallowed him whole, and only the echo of hooves remained, fading like a heartbeat lost to time. The sun sank behind the jagged peaks, leaving the desert bathed in crimson light. The wind carried whispers of dust and sorrow across the empty plains, and somewhere in that haunting silence rode Tahoma, his heart as torn as the land itself. Days had passed since he last saw Elara. Nights longer than lifetimes had stretched between the stars and his pain. His horse moved slowly now, its hooves stirring up ghosts of sand. Tahoma had not eaten nor slept. He rode because stopping would mean remembering, and remembering would kill him. But the desert does not let a man run from truth. It circles him, draws closer, until he must face it or be swallowed whole. He reached the cliffs above the river where he had once built a fire for Elara. Here, he had spoken his vow to her. The wind carries your name. Now that same wind whispered her betrayal back to him. He dismounted and stood at the edge, looking down at the black water below. In the fading light, his reflection stared back, a ghost in beads and feathers, with eyes that had seen too much love and too much loss. Spirit of my ancestors, he murmured, raising his arms to the sky. I gave her my soul. What do I give now? A low rumble of thunder rolled across the sky, even though no storm had gathered. The air thickened, and for a moment, Tahoma thought he heard his father's voice, a distant echo from his childhood. A warrior's heart can break, but his spirit must not. He fell to his knees. Then take the pain, he whispered. Take it before it consumes what's left of me. Below the cliffs, a soft voice answered. Elara. He froze. His eyes searched the rocks, and then he saw her, Elara, standing at the riverbank, her hair loose, her dress torn by the wind. She had followed him. He climbed down, every step echoing with disbelief and longing. When he reached her, he saw the truth in her eyes, the same sorrow that had haunted his dreams. Why did you come? His voice was hoarse, half anger, half awe. She stepped closer. Because I can't forget you, Tahoma. I tried to love him, but it was never real. His breath caught. You said you loved someone else. Tears glistened on her cheeks. I said it to survive. You were wildfire, Tahoma. I thought peace lived elsewhere, in walls, in safety, in silence. But peace without love is a prison. He looked at her for a long, unbroken moment. The desert wind tugged at his hair, the beads of his necklace clinking softly. "You left me with no breath," he said quietly. "I know," she whispered, "and I've been suffocating ever since." She reached for his hand, the same hand that had once saved her from the storm, the same hand that had built her shelter, touched her face under the moonlight. Her fingers trembled against his rough skin. "Can you forgive me?" she asked, voice breaking. He stared at their hands, his heart warring with itself. Then, slowly, he pulled her into his arms. Her tears soaked his chest as he whispered, "I can forgive what you've done, but not what it's made me become." Behind them, a sudden shot cracked through the air. Elara screamed. Tahoma spun, pulling her behind him. On the ridge above, Dane stood, rifle smoking in the dim light. "Let her go, Apache," he shouted. Tahoma's eyes darkened. "You've already taken enough." Before another word could pass, Tahoma charged up the slope like a spirit unleashed. The two men collided with the fury of fate, a struggle of rage and destiny. The rifle fired again, and both fell to the ground. When the dust settled, Dane lay still. Tahoma staggered to his knees, clutching his side. Blood darkened the sand beneath him. Elara ran to him, dropping to the ground. "No, stay with me, Tahoma." He smiled faintly through the pain, his hand finding hers. "The wind," he whispered, his voice fading. "It carries your name again." Then his head fell back. Eyes fixed on the stars, the same stars that had once witnessed their love, now bearing witness to its end. Elara cried out, her voice echoing across the canyons, carried by the wind he had once called his friend. The desert was silent again, but in the whisper of the breeze, one could almost hear him still. "You are so beautiful. I cannot live without you." And perhaps he never truly did leave. For as the dawn broke over the cliffs, the wind brushed against Elara's cheek, soft, warm, and full of him. The Apache warrior had become one with the desert, one with the wind, and one with the love that even death could not take.